Well, that was a movie.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Will, and welcome back to another quick review here on the channel. I'm taking a look at The Flash. This, of course, stars the talents of Michael Keaton reprising his role as the 1989 version of Batman. Also stars, or we get our first look at Sasha Calle, who is portraying Kara Zor-El, aka Supergirl. We see the returns of Michael Shannon, kinda, and this movie as General Zod. Yeah, Ezra Miller's in it too, as Barry Allen, aka The Flash. So, this is going to be just a quick review of the Flash movie. I finally saw it after like 3 weeks, and before they took it out of theaters, because apparently they're starting to remove it from theaters because it's not doing all that hot. This is heavily inspired by the Flashpoint Paradox storyline from the comics, and that has been given a version in some form in animation and in live action television thanks to the Flash TV series. So this movie also is one of the last bastions of the DCEU. We still have Aquaman The Lost Kingdom coming out, I believe, later this year. Those are like the last holdouts before the entire universe gets rebooted again-ish, kind of, by James Gunn and his visions for the DC universe going forward. If this happens to be your first time checking out one of my videos, hi, my name is Will, and I do geeky stuff on the internet. I do reviews and reactions, whole slew of different videos, from discussions to some gaming to a lot of drinking, which surprisingly this movie isn't as bad enough to make me want to drink, but it's not necessarily all that good either. But if this happens to be your bag and you're interested in hearing it from a geeky bear like myself, please subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it, and it would really help me out. So here we go. Let's talk about the thing. In The Flash, we see Barry Allen still gripping with not only the death of his mother, but also the fact that his father was blamed for it and is still incarcerated. And with all that grief and anguish, he decides to try to change history and save his mother from a fate of death. Not necessarily worse than death, but try to save his mother. And in doing so, alters the timeline in unforeseen and drastic measures that causes a multitude of different issues and things that he must team up with alternate universe versions of Batman, played by Michael Keaton, as well as Supergirl, played by Sasha Calle, and an alternate version of himself. It is a wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey type of movie. Not the first one to do it. Obviously, if you've been watching movies the last couple years, especially comic book movies, it's not the first one to do it. Yeah, to talk about this movie, or at least when I was deciding to go see it, because I was very much on the fence about seeing this movie in the first place. Of course, you know, or maybe you don't know, this movie has had a lot of baggage with it outside of the movie itself. I tried, and I'm really going to try with this review, to try to focus on the movie itself, which the movie itself is not the worst thing I've ever seen. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It's not Morbius. That's usually the benchmark of the last few years. It's not Morbius, but it's not necessarily what I would say a good movie is. It's not bad. It's not great either. Like, initially, like, some of the first few things I was hearing about the movie, they were talking about, wow, this is like, even James Gunn, mind you, said this. And I get it, it's marketing. Well, he did say this was like the greatest superhero movie he's ever seen, which I'm sure he's eating those words right about now. But it is kind of rough. It has a lot of good potential. It has a lot of good things that they tried to do. Execution wasn't all that great. And a lot of that is not necessarily 100% the movie's fault, because it had a lot of a big uphill battle to do in order to kind of get the movie over. Obviously, they've changed directors a few times, I think, on this movie, because this was supposed to come back way back in like 2018, 2019 or something ridiculous like that. Didn't happen. Different directors here and there. Of course, Warner Brothers changed up their structure, and things just weren't getting any better. And then you have a lead actor who does a lot of stupid stuff, and it's kind of that sort of baggage among other things that the movie has issues with that really kind of brought down my enjoyment of the movie. The story is very much heavily inspired by Flashpoint Paradox, is when Barry Allen goes back in time, alters the timeline, and causes a whole bunch of stuff. That's what happens in the movie. It is a variation of that storyline because obviously certain things and events from the storyline can't take place in live action because of what has been placed in the DCEU up to this point, albeit that the movie is not necessarily going to have a lot of long-term ramifications going forward. As a standalone movie on its own, it's okay. It has a lot of humor in the movie, which does not all hit. It really doesn't all hit well. It hits a few spots, but some of the jokes, honestly, for me, just fell like flat on their face, and not even in a good way. It tries to play with a lot of different sort of movie tropes to make it work and to kind of mask the fact that Ezra Miller really has to carry this movie. And in certain aspects, he does. But I'm not, at least with the way this movie presented his interpretation of Barry Allen, I am not the biggest fan of his interpretation of Barry Allen. It has been done better. I didn't mind his interpretation when I watched like Justice League, but I'm also realizing those were in like smaller doses and it was spread out amongst other people. He's really having to carry a lot of the scenes with just himself in it because of the multiplicity element of the movie where he plays off of himself. Michael Keaton's great. It's great to see him back. He is like, the movie picks up when his character is reintroduced to the audience, and it is really fun to see. It's a joy to watch when you see some of the callbacks and Easter eggs from his previous stints as the Cape Crusader. Yeah, he says the lines,
"You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts."
He does the thing. It's all very much fanfare, and it got me a few times, but those were the highlights of the movie. And I really did like Sasha Calle as Supergirl. I'm just a little disappointed we didn't get more of her in this movie, and I don't know if we're going to see more of her in the future, which is very sad because I think that character has potential, and it's just kind of a shame that we don't get enough time in the movie to really spend with that character. One of the biggest hindrances for the movie for myself, and again, it's really hard to like talk negatively because I know so many people work on the movies and so many people work on the visual effects of the movies, and we know Hollywood does not treat its visual effects artists very well, so it's hard for me to really sit here and say all the visuals were not good. The visuals were hit or miss in certain aspects of the movie. Like some of the running scenes were very much an aesthetic choice with how they really kind of showed them off. My biggest gripes was really more so with the characters when they're on screen. Sometimes they felt like they were just too CG-ified. Like a lot of like the facial stuff, you can tell things were changed in like post-production, it seemed like, but it was a little distracting in certain parts. And even some of the body molds, especially on Ezra Miller, because they make his suit seem so buff. It's just those little things here and there are very distracting because it does like take your eye away from what feels like it's more grounded. Not grounded in the sense of like the story, but grounded in the sense of like, this is a human being standing right here. But those were some of the elements that were a little rough for me. It reminded me a lot of Green Lantern. Remember Green Lantern with Ryan Reynolds? Like some of those elements just looked good, but then other ones really you felt the weight of the CG and how it just didn't feel like it was super polished yet. Like it could have stood to have a little bit more time. Granted, this movie had been pushed back multiple times, so I understand they were probably just trying to rush to get it out. Not all of it was bad CG, but the parts that were glaringly obvious that they were a little bit rougher was a little distracting for myself. I don't know if other people found it distracting, but it was just me. Like I said, a lot of the comedy was hit or miss with me. Some of the other supporting characters were just kind of like, eh. I did like some of Ezra Miller's acting, but again, a lot of his outside antics really kind of soured me on it. It really did. And like when you've seen performances from like John Wesley Shipp and Grant Gustin, or even Michael Rosenbaum, who did the animated voice of Flash for years, when you see some of those performances and then you look and see what we got with this, it is kind of disappointing. Like I said, Michael Keaton being back was fantastic. I thought Sasha Calle was great. Not much from Michael Shannon when it came to General Zod. I mean, he's in the trailer, so it's not really a spoiler. But you can tell this movie had a lot of rewrites and a lot of things that had to be changed to kind of fit the story, but also because elements just weren't available. Like, in terms of like a clear-cut villain, like the villain we did kind of get by the end was definitely a stand-in for another arch nemesis that we haven't seen in live action, at least in the movie universe yet. So I get why that happened. I feel like I'm being super negative about the movie. It's okay. It's an okay movie, but for a movie that was touted to be such a big, huge, like, event spectacle with, you know, worlds colliding, we've seen the return of Michael Keaton and this sort of rewriting kind of the DCEU. I mean, it does the bare minimum, to be completely fair. I did enjoy parts of it, but it should have been much better. And again, it had an uphill battle regardless of the story or the pacing. Because it did feel, for a 2.5 hour movie, it felt like they tried to do so much in such a small amount of time, between cameos and even some of the cameos of people who are no longer with us, which always kind of weirds me out to a certain extent with how CG looks. The CG, unfortunately, is distracting in certain parts. When it's good, but when it's not good, it's distracting. You know what it felt like, and this is the best analogy I can give, and this is probably going to wrap up this review. It felt like, you know, when it's the end of the school year, and let's say you have one more assignment that does not mean anything to your final grade, but you just turn in whatever. It felt like that. It's like that. And that's where I'm going to leave you with. So, I don't know if I can really recommend it. I would say watch it yourself and give your own opinion on the movie. But you can, at this point, you might as well wait for it to hit Max or whatever streaming service. Or if you want to buy the Blu-ray. I saw it for 50 cents technically because I have a membership to Regal. If you want to sponsor me, Regal, I'm looking. Check it out when you can. Don't rush to the theater, but check it out when you want to and form your own opinion on it. Or if you don't care, don't care. I hope you appreciate the review I gave. So that is going to do it for this review for The Flash. Let me know your thoughts on the movie in the comments down below. Try to keep it spoiler free because obviously there are spoilers that I could have talked about, but this is a quick review. So please try to keep it non-spoiler at best as possible. If you really want to talk to me, you can hit me up on my socials. I'm more than welcome to talk about the movie. Just be kind and be a real person, not a bot or anybody I might have to block. So thank you so much for checking out this and all my videos. I really do appreciate it. Again, if this happened to be your first time checking out one of my videos, hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you like this sort of content. And if you do, maybe check out some of the other content I have on the channel right now and subscribe if you would please. I would greatly appreciate it. Like I said, you can follow me on a lot of different social media platforms listed at the end of this video. I do have a ton of videos on this channel right now you're more than welcome to check out. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. As always, until next time, I will catch you later. Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you did like this video, why not give me a thumbs up and share it with your friends? You can subscribe to the channel by clicking on my gorgeous little face right over there. You can follow me on all the various social media platforms right below. And last but certainly not least, if you've got a few extra minutes, why not check out one of the lovely videos floating right over here. Later.